At the outset, some may say, prove to us that what you have said and alluded to is correct. My response is that many people and folks say, prove it to us. Show us proof that what you're saying is truth and honesty. Well, Madam Speaker, everyone here in this House, and let's just be honest, the populace in general, are not really looking for proof. Can I prove to you that my taste buds are telling me the truth when I drink sour milk? Well, no, of course I can't. Invariably, what people are looking for is evidence. And to paraphrase Rod Tidwell, played by Cuba Gooding Jr. in the movie Jerry Maguire, show me the evidence. So I give you the evidence which demonstrates that I'm telling the facts and the truth. I'm not concocting them. These facts are public domain, on record with Hansard, published in print and other media by the press, and the data and the information exists. So here we go. First, the prolific number of promises that were made by the government during the campaign, and now a year later, the percentage is growing of unfulfilled promises and promises not kept. Now, I'm disappointed to see that the polymeter of the promise tracker that was created to keep track of all the promises kept is not really up to date. The red category of broken is exponentially growing and needs to be current. First, there was the promise, a broken financial promise, the promise to balance the budget every year. Then the revised promise saying the budget would not be balanced in the first year, and the promise was revised again, claiming that the government came close. If they came close to balancing the budget, that would be just as good. Then came the budget and the news that the government had no intentions of balancing the budget at all during the first term, and then to countersink the point, the provincial government has revised its projected 25-26 budget deficit to $668.7 million, which is a $119 million jump from the projected $549 million shortfall predicted in March. And there is the projection that they will add at least $3 billion to the provincial debt over the course of the government's mandate. And so by the end of 25-26, this fiscal year, the province projects that the New Brunswick's net debt will have risen from $12.5 billion to $13.6. Now, this seems to lie in stark contrast to page 17 of the speech from the throne, and I quote, "Your government is making strategic investments that will not only impact economic development in the short term, but for generations to come. It will most certainly impact generations to come, but not for the reasons stated." My concern, would anybody want to run their household that way? To spend more than you have and to go into debt in perpetuity? No. Madam Speaker, the only thing I can think of is that this fiscal outlook is very reminiscent, oh yes, another musical reference, of a song by Tennessee Ernie Ford, 16 tons, and specifically the second line of the chorus, another day older and deeper in debt. So folks might say to me, does this bother you deeply? And my answer is yes. But then I realized most likely the government was making a list of decisions and promises while watching Mary Poppins. They got sidetracked and distracted and misinterpreted what Mary was actually saying. In particular, the part where Mary explains to Michael and Jane what is a pie crust promise. Children, a pie crust promise is something easily made and easily broken. So, Madam Speaker, I contend that these promises by the government are pie crust promises, but sadly, no spoonful of sugar will help those unbroken promises go down. Then we have the $60 million from the HST that has not been collected from the federal government. There was the lowering of MB Power's financial objectives and a timeline for budget accountability. The Child and Youth Advocate had to step in and demand reporting for $47 million cuts to child welfare. Food banks were cut. CHIMO funding for mental health helpline was cut. And on page 9 in the speech from the throne, it states that mental health advocate position will be filled in the spring of 2026. But the mental health advocate was an election promise to be filled ASAP. That has not manifested itself. New Brunswick is facing a growing crisis of poverty, inadequate social support. And in bringing some reality to page 12 of the speech from the throne regarding housing, according to the Auditor General, there are about 13,000 people on the housing waiting list, and about 6,700 have been on the waiting list for more than 2 years. And according to the Chief Executive Officer of New Brunswick Housing, when questioned in public accounts, as of October 1st, there are 12,976 people on the waiting list. So the government has helped 24 people in the run of the year to find housing. As of September, New Brunswick unemployment rate is trending upward, as is inflation. When we get to health, there is the cut of the 100% successful pharmacy clinic pilot for people with chronic illness. The government made changes to nursing responsibilities, which caused chaos, and then they revised the decision. $50 million was cut for Horizon Health. And then this question: what is the current status of the government's efforts to get doctors away from their solo practice and commit to establishing themselves at a proposed collaborative care clinic? So if the pay is going to be lower, what is going to work at the collaborative care clinics? Or how are you going to get them there? And if the trade-off is saying, oh, well, you're going to be in a team environment and you're going to consult and collaborate with colleagues, my question is, isn't that already happening now? This is not a case of field of dreams, build it and they will come. There has to be a purpose and a plan. The New Brunswick Nurses Union filed a bad faith bargaining complaint against the province over a now abandoned plan to force nurses in Horizon Health work to switch jobs. And New Brunswick now holds the worst retention rate of young nurses in Canada. 8 out of 10 leave the profession before the age of 35, which is an 80% attrition rate in one of the most demanding fields. And in an article on Wednesday last week, 62 young nurses leave New Brunswick for every 100 that start. Broke the comfort allowance promised to those in nursing home care to increase their allowance. It was $150. It was going to go up by $50 to $200. And they did that to save a mere $3.7 million on a budget of over $14 billion. So the seniors got shortchanged. DTI, a cut to budget road work, cancelled a sidewalk on the Miramichi Bridge, a plan to tear down the old Anderson Bridge. Ferries need to have work, parts and maintenance done on them now, not in 2 years' time. And there should already be a plan to acquire, build and purchase new ferries. And by the time an RFP goes out, it takes years for capital investment to come to fruition. Those conversations need to happen now with the folks that actually work and run the boats. And then tourism. Well, tourism. The Tourism Industry Association of Brunswick was cut by $905,000. Old Alexander MacDonald had a farm. Well, they did until they cut that one. And then, on November 7th, 1885, Donald Smith, director of the Canadian Pacific Railway, accompanied by Sir William Van Horn, manager of CPR, ceremoniously drove the last spike to complete the Canadian Pacific Railway, a moment when Canadian national identity was realized. In the summer of 2025, the New Brunswick provincial government drove their own spike by stating that government does not have any additional money to invest in the province's heritage sites. So, if William Van Horn only knew that years in the future in the 21st century, his beloved trips from Montreal to Minister's Island would be like a line from the Kenny Rogers song, The Gambler, on a warm summer's evening on a train bound for nowhere. What would he think? No national building projects announced for New Brunswick. And on page 21 of the speech from the throne, paragraph 6, the Department of Environment and Local Government is leading specific initiatives aimed at protecting clean air and water, advancing sustainability, and adapting to environmental challenges that will help us enhance our province's natural beauty and health. I'm sure the folks in Laurinville will let you know how well you're doing on that one. And contrary to the optics on education presented on page 14 and 15, the move to add 10 PD days in the Anglophone school system with zero evidence. At the press conference last week, the Premier acknowledged that the latest Francophone sector school assessment results, which the Education Minister had said was a key factor in the government expansion of professional development pilot program into the Anglophone sector, didn't show the improvement the preliminary results indicated. And the Education Minister eventually admitted that the government didn't have any data or evidence to connect the pilot with better results. So now that that has been debunked, how is the department justifying adding 10 more PD days to 37 participating schools in the Anglophone sector? Some districts reduced their unstructured time. Others extended their school days. What are the expectations for the Anglophone sector for the schools that are participating? According to the Minister of Education, there are no plans to follow suit. So in essence, less time for the children in classrooms. Who were hurt? Children. And let's not forget the claims that the pilot project will supposedly help with the chronic absenteeism. And again, the government doesn't have any evidence-based way to link the pilot to a reduction in chronic absenteeism, despite making that suggestion back in a column in July. It's just wishful thinking. It's like a twist on a Meghan Trainor song. It's all about the data, about the data, about the data, but no evidence. When the minister was asked to cite evidence related to chronic absenteeism, she eventually admitted that there isn't any yet. And when the media stated that there didn't appear to be any evidence connecting the two, the pilot project and reduction in chronic absenteeism, the assertion was not even contested and agreed. So the correlation between more PD days and a drop in chronic absenteeism can't be made. Who suffers? Children. The government is lowering student assessment targets. What's the new number? Would anybody want to be in a situation where folks only had to learn 1% of what they should? I mean, would anybody want to be on a plane where the pilot says, I'm good at taking off, but the landing wasn't a requirement? Or would anybody want a surgeon to say, I'm good at cutting through your epidermis, but the stitching up, I didn't really need to know? Or would anybody want to be rescued by a firefighter that was good at an interior attack and finding you, but never learned how to get out? ISD teams have been shuffled around and augmented, and collateral damage against students and children who desperately need that resource. The Advocates Review of the Anglophone sector of the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development show that senior leadership made inadequate efforts to assess the impact of cuts to ISD teams. And let's not forget the government has been found in bad faith on librarian cuts by the Labour Board. The Labour Board found the province violated its duty under labour laws to bargain in good faith, knowing that layoffs were imminent. The New Brunswick government applied for a judicial review and a stay of a Labour Board decision ordering the province to reinstate library workers in 3 school districts. In a decision, the Court of King's Bench dismissed the province's application for a stay of a July Labour Board ruling, and that decision ordered the province to reinstate library workers in 3 school districts, as well as the hours of school administrative assistants. However, the Finance Minister in a statement said, should a stay not be granted, government intends to proceed with the layoffs of the library workers again once we are legally in a position to do so. The staff received their intention and the impending layoffs on Friday before Thanksgiving. So the government certainly gave, but I'm sure those folks did not feel the thanks. And why would they? Well, the initial layoffs happened because districts had to find ways to cut $43 million at the request of the Department of Education. The response from the government was they should have known they could have negotiated the $43 million in cuts the province was looking for and didn't have to go to layoffs. But here we are again. And then, this is interesting to me, but then the announcement in September about the rebranding of public libraries in the province of New Brunswick. Here's the irony. New Brunswick Public Libraries received a commitment from the government to create a new brand that better reflects the full scope of what libraries offer. The new identity focuses on 4 themes: read, learn, play, and create. Interesting. It seems that these are the exact same things I had access to at my school library when I was being brought up and educated in the province of New Brunswick, and with crucial staff that were invested in my learning. Is it just me, or does anybody else see the irony? Now, but Mr. Speaker, I'm going to bring it up a notch. Now's a good time to be thankful to the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. So, The iconic singer, Dolly Parton, founded the program 30 years ago to improve children's literacy. She was inspired by her upbringing in rural Tennessee, where literacy rates were low. And since its launch, over 3 million children have been registered across the United States, Canada, Australia, the UK, and Ireland. And nearly 300 million books have been given as gifts. Children registered from birth to age 5 receive 1 free book per month by mail, totaling 60 months if they are enrolled from birth. And, Mr. Speaker, I'll be honest, I've role-played in my mind this summer a conversation. As I was mowing my lawn, I role-played a conversation with myself and Dolly Parton. And I must admit, I was telling Dolly Parton about the province's educational approach to layoffs, hiring, rehiring, layoffs again, letting library workers go, administrative assistants, and in my mind I go over all the information, and Mr. Speaker, all I can hear in my mind is Dolly Parton saying to me, "Well, sugar, that's a coat of many colors, isn't it?" To which I reply, "Yes indeed, Dolly, yes indeed." Now, let's not forget about the broken promise of the $10 a day daycare the government now says is an average of $10 a day. Well, to be honest, it's always been an average, despite the spin. New Brunswick children in care graduate at a rate 50% lower than their peers, and how will that be addressed, or will it? What is the province's strategy on addressing dyslexia in children? I've never heard a thing about that. And these students are often in classrooms where they will not get the help they need. And the irony, again, is that libraries and librarians were a great resource to foster the love of reading and help those students. And of course, let's not forget about the hungry children who are now not getting a promised pay-what-you-can lunch program that was supposed to be up and running in September. And to make sure we understand, the breakfast program and the pay-what-you-can lunch program are two different things. And where did that money go? And of course, the Advocate's September report on the education budgeting saga. Now, it is clear that what needs to be addressed is why the education system as a whole is failing children, not to provide quick, unthought, reactionary fixes that address the root causes and the issues, that don't address it, pardon me. Now, finally, Mr. Speaker, one thing that I enjoyed over the summer was an article that I saw published, and the title of it was called "1 in 3 New Brunswickers thinks province on the right track, poll suggests." Or as I like to say, 2/3 of the province is not happy and agree that the province is on the wrong track.